What's up, members, subscribers, and guests to the channel? This is Yuri, and I brought a couple of friends with me coming to you live from sunny Tampa, Florida. I have Michael on my left, I have Andre on my right, and we're just going to have a conversation. If you're joining us live, be sure to smash the like button. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't. Be sure to share this live show, and also be sure to participate. So we're going to engage in conversation. Your comments, your thoughts are greatly appreciated. And so this channel is obviously my channel is about relationships at large. And I want to start out with a question. I want to pose a question. The way we're going to do it, we're going to have this discussion. I'm going to throw a question and then have my friends answer it first, and then I will talk about it. So we're kind of all going to intermingle and all going to talk about. But the first thing that was on my mind, what kind of woman does a man looking for? I'm gonna keep it open-ended because I want to hear your thoughts, because I want my audience to hear men's perspective. Normally it's just me who's talking. Now you have other men who will be able to weigh in, and I want to know what they think. And by the way, this is going to be all just honest opinions of ours, so take it with a grain of salt, but we'll see what happens. So what kind of man what kind of woman does a man look for? Like you in particular, what do you look in a woman?
Jay, you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. I mean, everybody has their own qualities that they're looking for, particularly. I would say, I mean, obviously you want to have someone. I think one of the qualities that I prioritize is someone that's, loyal to you. Loyalty. That is, I think, is priceless to a certain degree. So, in that sense, I call it, like a ride or die chick. Somebody that's willing to ride with you to the end, through the goods and the bads. I think that quality is, I think, above all else, what I prioritize. Obviously, I want somebody with a sense of humor. I'm a silly guy myself. I like to joke around a lot. So I need someone that is kind of, similar in that sense. And what else? Loving. I'm an affectionate guy, so I like someone that gives me love like that too. So I think those are the top things, and I'll let you weigh in a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's pretty obvious. It's pretty simple. I think that as when we're children, we get imprinted with all the people that are around us, raising us and giving us information about what it means to be a human. When babies are constantly learning, and I was raised by a lot of Colombian women. My mom, her mom, which is my grandma, my dad's mom, many aunts. I would say at least like 4 aunts, and then friends of the family as well. And if you talk about Colombian women, at least like the ones in my family, they are very caring and nurturing and affectionate. Those qualities they're not just feminine. They keep the tribe together. It's like the glue. Like whenever we had potlucks or little parties growing up, and the whole family would come over, the women, had this special. The men would go and kind of do their jokes and talk, but like the women would be making sure that everyone was okay, everyone was fed. Like, hey, look, we're serving the food. Do you need some food? Do you need this? Do you need that? They're very attentive. They're like it's almost like a quality of hospitality, and I really appreciate that. I appreciate that in people as well, not just women. But I think that for me, that's one thing that I gravitate towards. It's like mindfulness. This kind of like being self-aware, but then also being aware of potentially what you could be feeling, being aware of what you could need, and just being, ready to serve. Like there's basically like most of the women in my family are just very focused on serving. Like serving her family, her kids, her her sister's kids, et cetera, et cetera. And I really appreciate those kinds of qualities.
Definitely.
For me, I'm going to echo a lot of things what Michelangelo already said, but I look at it in terms of intangibles and intangibles, right? Because I think you took it in terms of family values. You talked about just some core aspects of what's important. And I think they both intertwine. When I look at intangibles, starting with intangibles, right? I look at, first of all, loyalty. I look at, first of all, respect. I look at support. I look at nurturing abilities within the woman. I think, in my opinion, those are just absolutely critical qualities for women to have in order to make a good life partner, good mother, and good wife, plain and simple. And then there are also qualities that are tangible, right? So tangible ones I'm looking at is like, I would prefer for her to be at least somewhat educated. Like, I don't want to bum from a street, like, and I want her to be somewhat independent. And I think there's also misconception. It seems to me that women think that if 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 you would be a traditional, let's say, house stay mom, right, that you can't have education. I don't think it's true. I think you can have both. I think you can be educated woman, but you choosing to stay home with your children. That's the choice, conscious choice that you're making. So as far as I think that that's not a good idea for women to completely depend on the man. Personally, I think that she still need to have her own something. She needs to be her own person, in my opinion, right? She needs to have her own friends, her own life, her own hobbies, her own interests, but also preferably, have education and ability to, if anything happens, right, she can still function on her own. She doesn't have to 100% depend on the man, because if that happens, I think it would be the worst for a woman personally. And as a man, I also think it's not a good situation if I cannot have a conversation with you about something interesting, or if you're constantly living through me all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you like, do you probably dated or at least know of someone who've always been just so into their boyfriend. It's like, when a woman's so much into a man that she doesn't have her own life, I think after a certain point of time, it just becomes super tiresome for men. That's my take on it. The follow-up question on that, I would like to ask, what do you think the common misconception? So now obviously we talked about what we think from a man's perspective we want in a woman, but what do you think the common misconceptions that women think men want in a woman?
The common misconceptions that we think that women want in a man.
Yes.
Is that what it is?
Yes. So like, we just talked about what we want as a man, but now I'm curious, what do you think, based on what you've seen, the misconception is in terms of what women think?
What women think we want.
Something
Right,
that usually
right.
women
Yeah.
think that we are
Exactly.
looking for that we're not really looking for.
Yeah. Wow. No, that's a great question.
Yeah.
That's like a meta.
Yeah.
It's a meta question.
And before you go, everybody who's watching us live, thank you so much for being here with us. Be sure to smash that like button, but be sure to join the conversation. Give us a question or two. Leave a comment. I'll be bringing it and featuring it on the screen. So we want you to be very much part of this conversation. It's not just conversation between three of us. I want to invite you into conversation as well. Go ahead.
We did coordinate the hats. Yeah.
Yeah, we did. More on that later.
We did.
I think there's a misconception in women that men only are looking for superficial things, and therefore they put a lot of energy and time into what they wear, how much makeup they have on, does this match this, and so like there's a lot of emphasis on making sure that the outward appearance is perfect. Like a lot of the times you'll see women who are getting ready to go out and they'll try a dress on and it looks perfectly good. And then they'll look in the mirror and they'll say, do I look good in this? Maybe I should wear something else. And then they go into the wardrobe and they get a second dress. They try it on. Oh, wow. It looks great. Looks amazing. Just as good, if not better, And like, does this look good? I'm going to try something else. So they go in and a woman can end up in an hour trying on 5 to 10 different outfits, all perfectly good. And over stress on that, which is, fine. I'm sure there's personal reasons for that. But I also think that, besides looking good for themselves, women dress good. At least single women who are looking for a man, they dress in a way to try and attract the kind of person that they want. And although outward appearances are important, like first impressions are important, you want to be able to, look the part of where you're going and look nice, you know, that's only the initial spark. So a man's going to look at things that accentuate your best features, and that, maybe you focus on that. But beyond that, once you start a conversation, at least kind of higher quality men or more self-aware men, they're looking at your personality. They're looking to see if you're going to be compatible with them. They're looking to see if you have a similar sense of humor. Are you laughing at his jokes genuinely, or are you just laughing like are you just forcing yourself to laugh? If you can be comfortable in your own skin and you can interact with anyone, that to me is attractive. Like someone who's sociable, that goes a long way, more so than the person who's the best dressed or has the best makeup or has the best jewelry. These things are important on the first impression for like the first 5 seconds, the first 15 seconds. But after that, I mean, any woman can look, pretty or beautiful, or, any woman can do those things. But more so than that, I think it's even more important to look at what your actual personality is, what your character is like, what kind of person are you inside, if you're honest. So yeah, that's what I would say on that.
Yeah, I'm kind of big piggyback off of that, and I think really the common conception of men is, obviously we're very superficial. Like we are very just outside, attracted to the outside. And of course, I do think that, using that word attraction, I do think attraction is important, right? You want to be attracted to your partner. But I do think that meaningful attraction, as opposed to just superficial attraction, is I don't know, more complete. And I do think that meaningful attraction, that complete attraction, has a lot of those personality traits. It's not just a superficial. So when you have a woman that you're attracted to, and then you can deepen that attraction and that connection with respect and the loyalty and the healthy banter and the playfulness, that's when you take that attraction, I think, to the next level. And that's when you start to, develop a deeper connection, for sure. I think so. I think that is a common maybe misconception. Not that there's no truth to it, but I don't think it's exactly the way it's viewed usually.
Yeah, regarding makeup, I think there are a lot of men, not just makeup, but I think when you start looking at makeup, and some women take it to the extreme because they want to do plastic surgery, they want to do implants, and it just like list goes on, right? So I think like there's nothing wrong with a little bit of makeup, because obviously it just enhance how you look. But then there were also videos in situations where makeup completely changes somebody's appearance. Like there were men who suing women because there was, I think, an instance in India somewhere where I don't know how it happened. Maybe it's not true, but there wasn't. It was in the news where a guy actually married a woman, and then he woke up and apparently like he was in shock, and then he was suing a woman.
Bro, I've seen some of those videos. Like you could see some transformation in some of those videos.
Yes. So like for all the ladies, I think there is a limit at which you should probably like, set the kind of like actual uh, makeup game, because like you can deceive someone with that, because that's not a real appearance. So like if it comes to a point of what they call diminishing returns, because diminishing return in this case would be, well, I may have a good 2 dates with him, but then if he's going to see me, he might not really like me for who I am. That's diminishing return to me. So like you have to think about it logically, like how much do you want to put into that appearance, specifically like we're talking about makeup and enhancements of some sort, in order to make a great first impression. Because I agree with both of them. Like that gets you into the door, but it's not going to keep you in the house. It's only there, to create that initial connection. The rest of it, the man who has serious intentions, he's not going to judge you on your appearance. Like obviously he's going to be hanging out with you because he already likes how you look and he's attractive to you. But what else do you bring to the table? And there has to be more. Let's see some comments. Becky said, I think lots of men will dismiss women who are showing signs of aging. Is it true? That's a very tricky way to ask a question, Becky. Signs of aging. I think I think a lot of I think it depends, honestly, because like if I'm an old ass dude, right? And if let's just say like I'm 60 and I want to date, a woman, I'm not going to want to date a woman, hopefully, who's like 25. Hopefully, I'm going to want to date a woman who is around my age or maybe a little bit younger, right? Um, but in general, like we know that many men are attracted to younger women. I think like statistically, it's like 18 to 24 age bracket is where like they did some studies on it to where like a lot of men across different cultures and countries were universally attracted to that age bracket. So youth is something that we're attracted to collectively as men. But it's also a thing. I would also say there are a lot of hot women too. So like you might, because signs of aging, what does it mean exactly? Like, right? So if we define it further, like, does it mean your ass is sagging? Like, does it mean that like your breath stinks? Like, what does it mean, right? Like, because if you take care of yourself, a wrinkle or two is not going to stop a real dude talking with you. That's my take on it. But if you clearly not taking care of yourself, right? And there's a lot of ways. So like you can be physically unfit, you can be emotionally and intellectually unfit. And if that's the case, and you take those things as signs of aging, then yeah, I would argue that you are not being the best version of yourself. Therefore, you're probably not going to attract the best possible mate. But if it's a side of aging strictly physical, something that I think like the world is taking toll as we age, then I would say, and you take care of yourself, right? So like then people who are not attracted to you just strictly because of physical appearance, maybe not the best match for you. That's my take on
I
it.
want to chime in on this because this is a great question, I think, because signs of aging can look like wrinkles on your face, wrinkles on your hand, but I think signs of aging can also be wrinkles on your soul, like on your personality. For example, if you can meet somebody and they're very energetic, they have a very high vibrational frequency. Like when you speak with them, they're like, "Oh, hey, how are you doing?" Enthusiastic. They're looking to say yes, like being open to adventure. Like, "Hey, let's go do this." Being open to just doing something new. Always contributing to the conversation in a new and unique way. This is typically attributed to youthfulness, right? So your personality, you can become a more youthful person just simply by the energy that you bring. You can look 10 years younger. By the same token, you can be, say, 40 years old and you can act like an older person because you're more closed off, more reserved, silent. Hey, do you want to go riding ATVs? No, I don't think so. My bones. Oh, like you can make yourself old artificially. And those are signs of aging too. And I think that there's something very attractive about youthfulness, especially in women. I mean, I think men can also use this to their advantage, but women especially. Like once you've kind of gotten, how to dress yourself, you have clothes that fit you. You're working on your fitness. You're working on how to use makeup to an extent, but don't overdo that. I think most of the leverage you can get is in your personality. If you can make, as a woman, if you can have your best smile like ready, or if you can make other people smile, if you can make other people feel warm and welcome, that to me is going to make the guy dismiss any signs of aging, if that makes sense. He's not going to. So I think lots of men will dismiss women who are showing signs of aging. I think men will dismiss your signs of aging if you bring a youthful personality to the table. That's what I think.
I like that, right? That goes with the expression, you're only as old as you feel, right? So definitely, I think if you have that youthful spirit and that vigor and that energy, like you're talking about, for as long as possible, then you'll stay as young as you can for as long as possible. But I mean, I think aging, obviously is inevitable, and we all have our insecurities, and yes, nobody I think likes to see wrinkles developing. Maybe once we get even older, we're not as maybe stronger, as muscular as we once were. And I think that goes with why you have to search for someone more than anything, that your connection is deeper than just the physical, right? Because the physical is going to age no matter who you are. You could have been a supermodel at 20. Guess what? When you're 80, you're not looking the same, because it's just inevitable, right? So, how can you find someone to where the connection, because I am a firm believer that a deeper connection, right? One that's based off of those, attributes that we were talking about, from going through experiences together, growing together, nurturing each other, making one another better as individuals. I think those things deepen that connection to where you could, right, have more signs of aging, but your connection could really be deeper than ever, right? So I think it's just more than the physical signs of aging. Obviously, do we all want to be accepted for our appearance and feel loved for how we look? That goes without being said. I think you should always be nurtured in that sense of how you feel by your partner, and vice versa, right? If we're each nurturing each other, everyone's being nurtured there. Everybody wins. But yeah, of course, I think this it's an understandable question. I guess my comment would be, I hope that the connection you have someone is deeper than just the physical aging, than the physical, because that is going to be inevitable for every couple, for sure.
Choosing a woman is not like picking out a new car. It is more than looks and performance, and the plan to trade up for a new model in a couple of years. V said, you wake up next to the real person, not the makeup version. So be real with the makeup. Joe said, if that's the case, why are billionaires and rappers with women who have surgeries? Well, I don't know exactly. I can kind of give you my 2 cents on it. But a lot of it, I think, has to do. Show business is not a real world. Entertainment is like a whole different ball game. So a lot of things done in entertainment for cloud, probably just so people can be seen out in public, so they can be seen in magazines and videos and what have you. I don't think that um, a reasonable man, an average reasonable man, is sitting on the couch thinking, man, I need to get me some chick with surgeries so she can be looking good with that artificial ass in the house.
A BBL.
Yeah, like that's really my priority. I just want to see that badonk while she's cooking. Like, I don't think that that's the thought process of an average man. So billionaires and rappers, when you start getting to that territory of money do make a difference. Don't get me wrong. I don't think we can pretend that money don't matter. Like, do I, there's actually, I wonder about that a lot. Like, if I had a lot of money, would I change, or how would I let that change me? Because I'm sure my life would change. Like, I don't think that that there has to be some sort of change, because my lifestyle would change. I would be traveling, I'll probably be eating slightly differently, be going to different places. But would that impact me so deeply on the personal level to where my women preferences would change? Because money impact people not in good ways. So I would say that could be part of it, that, and plus you couple that with entertainment, and then you have like the perfect storm.
Yeah, I think sometimes that lifestyle could also lead to excess, right? And just like in everything, right? So it's not just like one chain. It could be, you look for
2 chains,
2 chains, 3 chains, right? And I think that sometimes that excess just keeps on growing and growing, to then they see, search like certain extremes, but definitely not what I think the average man is looking for sure.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. So what y'all have? I know y'all have some thoughts too.
Yeah. Oh, you want us to ask a question, or?
Yeah. So what we did, just to let audience know, each of us kind of prepared like a question or a thought to bring into a discussion. And I started out with my question first. And then I wanted to be able to have this interaction in the way that I ask a question and I let my friends talk about it first, and then I go last. So now each one of them will bring a topic of discussion. If it's Andre that brings up a topic of discussion, then Mike and I will discuss it first. So that way, we're not being influenced by his thoughts on the topic of discussion, and vice versa. Then Mike will go. And so while we go at it, be sure to continue on with your comments and thoughts. So you want to go first?
Sure. I guess all right, so mine is I guess a little broad, but I'm gonna narrow it down so you have a little bit more of a scope to follow. It's love, right? But as an agent of change and as a mode of operation, right? What is your thoughts on love in that sense?
Agent of change in mode of operation.
Yeah, as in like, and it stems from, I guess, I'm a firm believer in that love is the biggest, the greatest agent of change in this world. That it's the most impactful thing that we can have to impact others, like love, right? So mode of operation in the sense of operating from a mode of love and giving love to others. So I kind of already talked about it a little bit, but
Right.
that was kind of the frame that I was coming from.
Mhm. I suppose the answer begins when you also ask, what is love? This
Yeah.
thing that we call love. It's one of those kind of deep questions. Um, Love can mean different things. I think one of the most powerful forms of love are when I deeply desire and hope for the best for another person,
Hmm.
the best that that their health is the best that it could be, that their emotions are the healthiest that they could be, that their self-awareness is the best that they could be, and that they make the best of all their talents and the natural born gifts that they have and the opportunities that they have, and integrate the weaknesses that they have into their story arc, because we're all kind of building this story as we move through life. And so that's what I think one of the most universal forms of love is just wanting the best for someone.
Mm.
And that can, I mean, you can, obviously it's easy to want the best for someone when that someone is your child or your mother or your brother, etc. But it can also extend just to a stranger. You look at a stranger and you listen to them, you listen to their words, you listen to their body language, you interact with them. And as you're taking that person in my mind, I will actively look for ways to send love towards them, like want the
Yeah.
best for them, and look to hold them in that positive space that allows them to feel validated and accepted and encouraged to be the best version of themselves. And so I think, in that sense, love can be one of the most powerful forms of, or one of the most powerful agents of change, because, when I feel encouraged and empowered and supported by others, because other people love me, they see who I am with all my strengths, all my weaknesses, my flaws, my uniqueness, and they say, hey, we want you to do more of that. We want you to be more of this, wholesome person, et cetera, et cetera. And I think it has a butterfly effect,
Yeah.
where it's like a ripple effect. When I put out love unto another person or a series of persons, and I do that over and over again, it's kind of like I'm watering a plant or a tree every day. I'm watering it. I'm giving it sunlight. I'm giving it nutrients. I'm giving it, what it needs. And over long periods of time, that's how deep friendships form,
Yeah.
or that's how relationships at work form, or in a community, in a family. And, there's no limit to the power that love can have. There's no limit to those effects. Like you can shed so much love on someone that they grow into a giant oak tree. you know
Yeah.
there's people who are single-handedly responsible for, they're like the only person who supports someone, and it's like it's somebody who's in a tough place, and there's one person that's supporting them and emotionally supporting them, and seeking to help them, and that helps them get out of a rut, and that makes sure that they
Mhm.
go on to become the best version of themselves. And if that person wasn't there, they'd be a destructive version of themselves.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's just a little bit. I mean, it's like the tip of the iceberg on what I
Yeah.
think about that.
That's such a like a vast
Oh, of course.
subject.
That's why I prefaced it with that.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love that you brought it up. I love that you brought up
Yeah,
love.
right.
Because I think there are just countless of ways that you can go with that. Because there's romantic love, obviously, right? That is once you had that, I feel like you're never the same.
Hmm.
You know, that's just it changes you because it's like, you know, like think about your favorite thing in the world, right? Maybe your favorite, like, I don't know, something you connect with. Like we talked about dancing, right?
Yeah.
Like if you connect with music and you love it so much deep in your soul that you connect with it so much that every time that you listen to it or hear it, it brings you genuine happiness.
Yeah.
Like that's love. That's not love in the romantic sense for another human being, but it's love that you feel. And I argue that it not just changing you, it impacts you within the moment. But what I'm wondering too, like what kind of actual effect it has on your health, longevity, well-being, because it has to have an effect.
Without a doubt.
Absolutely, because like people who, you know, sometimes people call other people hippies, like, oh, look at these hippies just wearing weird clothes and dancing together and, you know, having no worry in the world.
Yeah.
But I feel in a way like these people, they experience love for one another in the moment. They experience love for
For sure.
music. They experience love for the community, whatever it may be. So I think like that the concept of it, right? I actually think it's one of the, it has to be one of the like top three most powerful emotions in the world. And I do think that that allows the world to be still positive and people to have hope.
Yeah.
Because of that, because they seek in it, right? Whether they seek in it, you know, with something small, finding their own purpose in finding something that they love or finding someone that they could love. I mean, it's one of the most precious things in the world. But in other, like, I also think, with that being said, you know, I think that it could be very, how can I put it? I don't want to say it's fickle, like in a way that it can go away quickly, because true love everlasting, as they say.
Mhm.
But within the context of relationships, you may think you love someone today, and then all of a sudden when you break up, you hate each other. And there's actually, in Russian language, there's a saying, there's one step from love to hate.
Hmm.
So like it can also turn in a hurry into the completely opposite emotion, which is interesting to me, because if you say that you love someone,
Yeah.
how can you feel hatred or like all those negative emotions towards that person? Well, people say, well, he cheated, or well, she abused me emotionally, right? And it's like, yes. And so I guess what I'm saying is love is conditional. A lot of love is conditional, in my opinion. When we talk about human beings, right? So I'm not talking about like music or things or experiences. When we're talking about love between human beings, I think a lot of it is conditional. In fact, I was thinking about it. It's funny you asked it, because I was thinking about how much love is truly unconditional. And the only thing that I could really think of is like the purest form of unconditional love that I can imagine is a love between mother and her child. Because I don't think that you can match it. You know, like I think that when you talk about boyfriend and girlfriend, it's still conditional.
Mm.
Like you can, you know, because you like her for something, not because she's just cooking, but maybe because of her personality traits, of how great she is when she's spending time with you, or, you know, of a number of other things. She likes you because of A, B, and C as well, right? Because you make her feel a certain way, whatever. If you take away those things, will you love her the same way? I'm not saying you, I'm just saying in general, right?
Totally,
Like,
yeah.
will the person love her the same way? Will she love the person the same way? So I think, as beautiful as is, it's really hard. I don't want to sit here and say that it's impossible or it doesn't exist, but I can think so that maybe you can tell me your thoughts on it. Like, because if we're talking about love in the sense of like the truest form of love between human beings, how can we find unconditional love? Because, part of this podcast, like the name of this podcast, I'm approaching middle age, and within my lifetime, I learned that even the best relationships that I've had, they still were conditioned. Like they were, based on something. Like if those things weren't there, the relationships weren't there. Now it's my experiences, but I just think that this is to me, in my opinion, this is the tricky part of navigating life as an adult, as a grown man. And I'll say another thing too. I think that, how can I put it? I don't know if I can say that. I don't think it would be right for me to say that men love women more unconditionally, but I think what I can say is that I think man look at women right away and they can fall for her faster. I think for women it takes a little bit longer to really, get that emotional connection with men. And I don't know what my overarching point here. I can't even finish it.
So I want to. So there's one point that I think that is a common misconception, or there's just not enough clarity on. Sometimes when people have strong emotions of love, or they describe themselves as feeling love for someone, we tend to mix two things. One of the things is kind of the first concept of love that I described, which is wanting the best for someone's life. That's a completely impersonal quality of love, which means I love that person for who they are unconditionally, and I want the best for them. That has nothing to do with me, how they relate to me, what I can get, right? So there's love, and that's my current definition of love. And then there's this other effect called attachment, right? And there's healthy forms of attachment, and then there's unhealthy forms of attachment. There's usually a spectrum in between. And there's a lot of study on this in the field of psychology. When kids are born, they're attached to their parents. They have to be. They're attached to their parents for survival. And usually, you'll be more attached to the father or the mother, or vice versa, or someone. And then those styles of attachment we tend to bring to our relationships, and so there's a lot of study on this as well. And I think because there's so many strong emotions related to our attachment to the people that we're romantically involved with, we tend to mix that up with love. And so while I think the true definition of the purest form of love is one of the best for someone, it tends to get messy when you are attached to someone. You depend on someone to get positive emotions, to get that dopamine hit, or oxytocin, or serotonin, some of these hormones that make us feel like we really love that person. Wow, I feel like I really feel love. Those feelings partially are informed by how many of those hormones you have in your brain. And I think a lot of the times those things are more, the emotions are more on the attachment side than the unconditional love side. Because someone can do me wrong, but I can still want the best for them, right? Somebody can do something that hurts me, that I feel bad, but I can realize, hey, maybe they're like in a bad spot right now in their life. They're going through something. I'm still going to choose to love them. I can still have healthy boundaries and say, okay, I'm not going to let that person hurt me, but I don't have to throw hate on them, or anger, or rage, or retaliation, envy, jealousy, disgust, all these things. To me, those things have no place in love. And it kind of, some of our ancient scriptures kind of point this out. Whenever you hear like 1 Corinthians 13 gets cited in a lot of wedding ceremonies when people are getting married, and it talks about, that the Apostle Paul wrote, love believes all things. Love endures, forever. Love doesn't boast. These qualities have been described by humans for a very long time. So, what is love? We're going to have to discover that. But if you're really honest about it, love should be separated from our attachment to someone, or their attachment to us. I think love should just be this thing that it's like a disposition of your heart. Your heart says, hey, I'm going to open my heart to that person. And no matter what happens, like, I want the best for them. Even if it means at some point, in order for me not to be hurt, I might have to create some sort of a boundary. Sometimes it's a permanent boundary, like a breakup, but I can still hold them in a light of I still want the best for them. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I'll just say something really quick in the sense of, um, like you said, I think the key word that I took away from what you said is boundaries, right? You can still love, because I thought about like a child and a mom and unconditional love, right? You could love your son unconditionally, but there are certain boundaries that you still have to set, as if in it puts you and the rest of your family in danger. I think of, like, I don't know, like a son with, a drug addiction that puts the rest of the family in jeopardy, to where you can still love your son unconditionally, but there are certain boundaries that still have to be set in place. So it's obviously not simple, right? But I think that's a very good point that you brought up.
Did you have anything else? Did you have
No,
your own
that's it.
thoughts? You're good?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I mean, those were, yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Let's see some comments. And keep them coming. Keep those questions and comments coming, okay? You have to, so V said, you have to love and show yourself before you can truly love someone else. And most people do not. Love is not like our grandparents' era when it was for better or worse. Becky said, why do some men leave or break up with women they know love them if that man ends up losing their financial stability and or health?
Trying to figure out whether that question is talking about does does the man end up losing his financial stability or health after leaving that person? Is that what the question is? Do you think it's saying?
I think it's like that.
Like, even though there's severe consequences to breaking up, and somebody's like that, with someone that loves them, why do they still go through with the breakup?
Yeah.
You can, Becky, you can clarify if you don't mind, like when the man ended up losing their financial stability before or after the breakup.
Yeah, I think I'm assuming that her question is, even though he has a lot to lose, and this person is clearly a great person, why do some men leave over? To me, like, this almost sounds like this is such a specific question. It almost seems like it's personal experience. Like maybe you went through this, Becky, and there's a lot of emotions that go into decisions when people decide to break up. There's a lot of circumstantial things that could be happening. I think that there's two sides to, or at least these two qualities that I see for why men end up leaving women. One of them is this pressure that men feel, like this need to perform or need to be a certain kind of man for someone. And if sometimes if guys feel like they're not being appreciated for what they're doing, they might find the appreciation somewhere else. That's one, a quick one. Another one is, they're just not getting what they need. They might need something, and they might be trying to get what they need, and they might not be getting it. And they probably think that they have a better chance at finding it somewhere else, or they'd rather just be alone, right? So maybe it's not enough is being brought to the table, so to speak, and they just decide to leave. So I think those are some quick ones. Obviously, there's a lot more there. It'd be cool if we had a lot more context on it, because these things I think are circumstantial. Why somebody would decide to make such a such a big decision, I think it's going to be personal on every level. This one, it's going to be hard to generalize on.
Yeah, so you said, before breakup, and saying it's the reason. So basically, we have a man breaking up with someone because of his financial stability and or health. And I guess the tricky part here is that the scenario that you gave us is that woman loves the man, and man knows it. So that's what makes it complicated. So from my standpoint, obviously, again, that could be like God knows how many things, right? Like, I cannot read this particular man's mind, but just if I was about to make an educated guess on it, if he really loves you, he may be concerned about you. He wouldn't want you to take care of him if he ended up feeling better, if his health is really in jeopardy. So because if the true love is there, seeing someone that you love hurting because of your situation is not a good thing. It's actually gonna, like, you would want to protect people that you love. So I can understand the logic of breaking up with someone, which choosing lesser of two evils, I suppose, right? Like breaking up with you is still gonna break your heart, but at least you're not there by the deathbed, hypothetically speaking, or taking care of him when he is really a really difficult situation himself, health wise. The other part that could be a completely different case, to where, like, you know maybe he is dealing with his own insecurities. Maybe he cannot overcome the thought that he's not going to be able to provide the same lifestyle for you. Maybe he feels embarrassed about his situation. Maybe his health is, will create other problems that will prevent him from having experiences with you that he used to have. I'm not talking about sexually. I'm talking about even just ability to, take trips or hang out together. Or, the other scenario could be like completely made up. Like at the end of the day, maybe it was time for a breakup and he just used that as an excuse to break up. Right. And sometimes it's easier to use it as an excuse to break up, because you can tell your significant other, like, look, yeah, I actually have a reason, legitimate reason. I have financial issues and I have health issues. I can't be with you anymore. And I think, like, psychologically speaking, you can justify it in your own mind as a man. Like, these are the things that going on with me. So, like, could be a number of things, and it's really hard to tell. But I think men have a way of. I'm not saying that he's a liar. Maybe it's a legitimate reason, but it could be where it's made up as well.
It seems like it could also be a pride thing, right? Like if you don't want someone to experience you at your worst, it could be like a pride thing, right? Like if I'm saying, hey, I just lost a ton of money, I can't provide a certain lifestyle for you, and therefore, if you can't have me, if you can't see me when I'm at my best, if you can't have, and like, because I can't be at my best, then you shouldn't see me at all, because I don't want you to see me in this lower status form. So that to me is a pride thing. And honestly, I think this is where women actually have some of the best leverage, because there's certain quality that women can help men with, and it's with their egos, because a lot of men, especially prideful men, obviously they tend to have big egos. And if their ego is hurt or bruised, man, like there are certain women, they can come in and they can help heal that ego, because there's only so much other men can do. But like if a woman comes and she, like, brings you, like, she kind of brings you this like nurturing aura, like doesn't expect you to be all these things. She's just like, just being with you is enough. And she can really show that. She can, I think that can go a long way, so yeah.
What do you think?
I mean, I think you guys covered it, but yeah, I think it's a lot deeper than just that. I would need to know more context to really like give an explanation. But yeah, it could be a lot of different things. That could be part of the reason. It could be not the reason at all, and he's just saying it. Or I think it could be a lot of the pride, not being able to provide maybe the type of life that you once did, and not being able to take that hit yourself. And rather than having to face that reality, you make it seem as if you're taking care of them, in that sense, when really it's just because you can't deal with that yourself. But yeah, I think it's I mean, it's probably a lot of stuff that who knows how long they were together and all the things that happened along the way. But it sounds unfortunate, but it's one of those things that if it's meant to be, it'll be. Not to sound cliche, but
and another thought that popped into my mind is that man will attach, the sense of worth to a number of things, right? So, like, I think a lot of men will attach sense of worth for their ability to provide, to ability to be good and bad, for the ability to protect, for the ability to support. There's a number of things that men will look at and say, this is directly connected with my sense of worth. And it could be different things for different men, but there has to be some of these things that speaks to us as men, right? So meaning that if financial ability to provide financial support is one of the things that you attach yourself worth to as a man, that means that if you don't have it anymore, if you don't have the financial situation that that you want to be able to provide, then your sense of self-worth could be hampered. And at that point, I can see how he just choose to call it quits versus trying to figure out, because every time that he's unable to take it to the restaurant, it's like a painful feeling for him. He feels like he's inadequate inside, like, oh, like, I don't have it anymore, like I can't afford it, I'm a piece of shit, like, so that could be one of the things. Let's see. I think you said no comment. Yes, it is a personal experience. After a 4-year relationship, they got diagnosed with a chronic illness and lost his job. And sorry to hear that, but
Yeah.
that's also not a one thing. That's two very impactful things, right? So, like, now that you give more context, like somebody who is, I'm guessing again here, but somebody who lost their job and got diagnosed with chronic illness, like that's a big life change. I think that for a lot of people, it'll mess with you mentally. It will put you in a different place mentally, to where, like, maybe in your mind, like, man, I have to make some life decisions, and what's really, like, what I able to do in my life right now, and what's like the priorities in my life. And not to say that you weren't a priority, but maybe that, like, his mind went to a completely different place because of this true life circumstances that happened, and he just had to make some choices. But appreciate you sharing that. I know it's personal, I know it's tough stuff to talk about, so thank you for that. All right, so you have yours, right?
Yeah. All right. So, question for you guys. What for you is the most difficult part of becoming the man that you want to be, the man that you want to become? As you get older, we're constantly striving to improve ourselves in different ways, and maybe there's a certain way that you envision yourself 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30, 40, 50 years from now, right? And there's a picture, right? Imagine that in your head, like the kind of man that you would be proud of becoming, right? And obviously, a lot can be said in that, but what's the most difficult part of that process for you?
I could sum it up in one word that I think is very encompassing, and it's discipline. In the sense of being disciplined, which I think leads to consistency and habits and all these other things. I think that's like how can I say, a keystone kind of principle of being disciplined that leads to so many other good things. And I think that, as really, obviously life is one long process, one long journey, and it's never ending, and you're always kind of refining yourself and be trying to be the best version of yourself. But in order to consistently make progress, you have to have that discipline throughout the process, because I think that's really what leads to the greatest results. So I think that, in a word, discipline.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think the next level to that, or just a sub bullet to that, is sacrifice, because it seems to be an impossible task to accomplish your goals without sacrificing things and making time for right things. And when you're not accustomed to, right, like in my own example, like, which, by the way, this is like my college friends. We went to college together. That's where I met him, and we're still able to shout out Mike for the hats. This is beautiful. Man, it's like a reveal, the commitment reveal. I commit to University of Florida. Man, this is beautiful. Right?
Yeah.
It wasn't planned. It just so
Go
happened.
Gators.
It just so happened. So one example that I wanted to make is that, when I was younger, like, I spent my time doing things that weren't productive and weren't, necessary for my personal growth. But at the time, it's what I wanted to do. And at times there were no mentors, and times it was, it's not even really the mentor thing. It was just like, because I don't want to use it as an excuse. It was like not having enough capacity at the time to really make a change on my own, right? So like falling into the same patterns. And to be honest, some of it was like, man, I'm like partying. I'm like having this lifestyle. It's worry-free lifestyle. So like, am I going to look back at it and regret all of it? Maybe I will probably think twice about some of it. But at the time, it was like the best time in my life, right? So I think as a man, like you have to make these hard decisions, like because you don't know the alternative. Like you don't know what actually going to happen at the end of the day. You don't know if you're going to sacrifice everything that you possibly can right now, if it's going to pay off, because there are no guarantees. I think like I think realistically you hope it pays off, like logically it should pay off, but will it? Right? Because there's plenty of people, right? Like if you think of like total number of people on earth and how many of them live in their purpose and mission, and who also reward financially for it, right? So there's number of things, like how many you think are actually in that place who can answer, I am living my mission and vision, however you define it, right? However you define that end goal. And I think I believe there's going to be relatively like small percentage of people who doing it for one reason or another. And I think for me, when I think about United States, because if we talk about other countries, like there's some places in the world where you just can't, you're oppressed, you have limitations. But I think like if United States, there are so many opportunities. And it's funny that you said discipline, because my first thought was along the same lines. So I know that I cannot blame anybody for the lack of success on my part. I just know I can't. So because of that, because I know I'm in a situation where I can make things happen, I have to look at what am I not doing? Am I not sacrificing enough? Am I not working hard enough? Am I, not doing something else? But at the same time, like the other thought that comes up is like, how can I balance it out to where I can live my life right now? Because it takes, some people like Gary Vaynerchuk, he was like working at his dad liquor store for like 10 or 12 years or whatever it was. And he didn't see return on investment at all. And like, you have to be like a special human being in order to be able to sacrifice that amount of time and still come on top. Right. So I think like the dance, it's an elegant dance between like how much you need to do to become a man that you want to become, but at the same time to live your life. That's the difficult question for me. But without doubt, sacrifice. Sorry guys to speak so long, but
that's good. So discipline, sacrifice. Yeah, for me, and I honestly I wish I had realized how important this was sooner, because I had known about this concept just like because I read a lot of books on self-help or psychology and whatnot. But now when I'm actually putting some of these things into practice, it's making a huge difference in how quickly I achieve certain goals. And for me, the most difficult part is prioritization, having priorities, clearly laid out, well-defined priorities of how I spend my time during the day, and where I spend time, energy, money, all this stuff into. So, for example, I think one of the qualities of becoming an amazing man is constantly striving to be more physically fit, stronger, flexible, have endurance, because all those things, physical fitness translates into the ability to work and to focus on things and to make things happen, right? So if I'm someone who I feel capable in my physical strength, in my endurance to actually follow through on things, long projects that take a long time, mental fortitude, then I'm going to be a better person. I'm going to be able to accomplish more. And this is obviously something that women can work on as well. But I think like as a man, we're expected to be competent and to be able to achieve things and to solve problems. Like that is one of the things that like I think most men strive to do, is to be able to become problem solvers and to be able to accomplish things and to conquer things and to compete. And so when I realized that like, hey, I need to prioritize my health, I can't just be like running on fumes and like not eating right and not sleeping right and all this stuff. Okay, so health is number one. All right, what else is important? Okay, well, relationships are important. Like making sure that I keep in touch with all the people who are important to me. Making sure that, like after my health is taken care of, like how are my friends and family doing? How's their health? How can I support? What can I contribute to them? Okay, cool. So that's second priority number two. Priority number three is building, building the empire, building, whether it's my career or a wealth or income streams or a project that I'm working on that's really important. Maybe like someone has a kid, like, they're going to prioritize like raising that kid. Shout out to Ozzy who just had his daughter, first child. His daughter was his fiance Jenny, and they're up in Chicago. But see, that's going to be something that naturally you're going to prioritize. But prioritization is so important. Like it sounds like such a boring concept when I was 18, 20, early 20s, like, oh, so you have to learn how to prioritize. Like, oh yeah, that's what old people say. It's like, well, yeah, old successful people probably are telling you that maybe you should listen. So yeah, I think that's one of the hardest things is like knowing what to prioritize and then actually sticking to that prioritization. Like when my body is telling me, oh, I want to stay up and watch another episode that's an hour long of this new series, but my bedtime is 10 and it's now 9:50. Like, don't hit next, bro. Like, turn it off. It'll be there tomorrow. It's not going anywhere. You're not going to go to sleep, wake up, do your work, and you'll have more time to enjoy those things later. So this is one little example.
Unless it's Stranger Things, then keep on watching another episode.
There's no exceptions, man. I mean, and there are exceptions. There are exceptions, but if the exception then becomes a rule, then you're prioritizing entertainment over health. And that's everyone's choice. You live with the consequences of your actions. But I'm saying, like, if I really want to become great, like, then I have to know what my priorities are and stick to them. With discipline.
Nobody achieved greatness from watching too much Netflix, without a doubt.
I would even say not just greatness, just results.
Yeah, whatever results.
Like, because I think when people say greatness, I'm thinking like, man, that's like, it's grand.
Well, like everybody has their own definition. Yeah.
What's your definition of greatness?
Oh, Baba, that's a fully loaded question.
That's the guy who asked about love.
I've had to use the bathroom for the last half an hour, and I've tried to stay strong.
You want to take a break? You can take a break, bro. Yeah, Yuri and I will hold it down.
Go ahead.
All right.
Do you think most men get too comfortable in daily life that they lose sight of their dreams and settle for mediocre life? Yeah, that's a big question too. I mean, the way you phrase it, most men, I don't know if it's most men, but I bet you there's men that deal with that. Because think what a life of an average man is like. Like, he gets up. Obviously, it will depend on the age, on the demographic, on the location. It's going to depend on a lot of things. But what average male in United States, somewhere between 40 to 60 grand a year, right? I mean, if you're talking about age-wise, I mean, probably middle age, kind of like me, since I'm approaching middle age.
Dang.
What is that? So if we were about to define an average man, I would dare to say that average man life is mediocre. I mean, I think it's not harsh. I think it's a fair thing to say. I mean, but mediocre doesn't mean bad, right? So I think the question is, did they have dreams to begin with? Because I think for some people, for some men, a goal, some men don't have dreams. For some men, goal is to graduate college and get a job. And once you get a job and you can afford a house to live in, you can afford a car, you can take care of your bills, that's by many people's standards a pretty good life, right? So if you look at it from that perspective, then you already kind of on track to achieve your goals, or maybe you already achieve your goals in some instances. So what's next? Like what it is, I guess the question is like, what's driving you as an average man to have dreams? There has to be something, I think, that inspires you to strive for more, beyond just an average life, beyond just an average job. So what is it? And I think, like we talked about love earlier, but I think it has to be something that you resonate with internally. right? Maybe you wrote a book that made a huge impression on you. Maybe you heard about productivity from Michael, or from discipline, from, from Andre, about discipline from Andre on this podcast. And maybe that resonated with you. If you're a man and you like all of a sudden like, man, I can do better. Sometimes it's not so much what you currently doing, but it's realization of a better version of yourself that you can become, right? So like, it's to answer your question, I really, it's difficult. Like, I don't know if most men get too comfortable. I think we are, as men, we're creatures of habit too, to some extent. Like, if we have things that we need, like, it takes an extra push to do more to get things that we don't have. And as the saying goes, like, you have to do that you've never done in order to have things that you've never had, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, that means that you have to change your entire routine. And if we are creatures of habit, that's going to be significant effort required in that, like, psychological effort that would go into it. But anyway, I feel like I'm mumbling at this point. Mediocre life will be defined differently by different people. Having being able to make money and have family and have a place to live, for some people, is a great life, right? So that's my take on it. You have anything else to add?
Um, I think it's, yeah, in some ways it does depend on whether that person had a dream. What was that dream? And then what do you define as a mediocre life? Because, you know, like you mentioned, the average, annual income for a man is like, at least in the US, is like 40 to 50,000. You think about like what kind of lifestyle you can create for yourself, and depending on whether you have a wife, whether you have kids, how many kids, what part of town do you live in, et cetera, et cetera. Is that like, if you're paying the bills and there's food on the table and your family has clothes to wear, I mean, that's a great life. I mean, you have toilets that work. The water is hot when you turn it on. You have AC. You have a roof over your head. When it rains, the water doesn't get in. You have a car. Like, depending on what it is, right? I cannot say that that's a mediocre life. To me, like, what I would say a mediocre life is knowing that you could be doing way better in terms of what you create in the world. Like, what are you doing with your talents and your gifts? If you know that you are an artist, right? Let's just say, if you know that you're an artist, you like to paint, you like to draw, you like to do all these things, but you have a 9-to-5 job that is as data entry, and you're just typing in a computer all day, right? All right, you go to work for 8-9 hours a day. You sleep for 8 hours a day. You have 7 hours left over. Let's say you spend 4 hours with your family, so you have 3 hours. What are you doing in those 3 hours? Are you painting? Are you not painting? If you really want to paint and you're not doing it, then okay, maybe you are slipping into a form of giving up on your dreams. I still wouldn't call it mediocre, though. It's hard. It's hard to say what's mediocre, because it's who's going to judge, right? Because you could look at a person who's coming from a third world country, and they really, I mean, there's no regular electricity running. It's like, it comes in and out. The water, they have to go to somewhere to go get clean water. Like, you could look at that person. They come to the US, they look at the way somebody lives here who we think is mediocre, and they might think that person's living like a king. Bring somebody who's lives in Cuba, or in the sticks in Colombia, or like somewhere in the country. And, here in the West, like, I know we have an international audience, but I think you are your best judge. You can compare yourself to who you were last year, who you were 10 years ago. If you can constantly improve upon the quality of your life, then, that's how you avoid having a mediocre life. You can only compare yourself to yourself, right? And only you can say. You have to be honest with yourself too. Like, don't lie to yourself. Like, how can you really lie to yourself? So yeah, I mean, only you can say if you have a mediocre life. And I don't think most men get too comfortable. I think that we we have different priorities. Priorities change, circumstances change. Uh, some men might get too comfortable, but again, like I think that only you yourself can judge. So that's what I would say.
One thing that I also want to add to what Michael was saying is that as a man, we realize, I think a lot of men realize that we have to stay relevant for the rest of our life. When I say stay relevant, meaning that for ourselves, we have to do a number of things. We have to keep ourselves in good physical shape. We have to keep educating ourselves. We have to, keep improving ourselves in various ways in order for us to be able to compete, because a lot of it is a competition anyway, right? It's, you might not think it's competition, but we compete for the job, we compete for women, we compete for, being able to be in the room with influential people. It's all like, a lot of it is a competition. So like, if you're not bringing your best as a man into these situations, you're not going to be looked at and considered the same way that this top echelon man will, and nobody going to feel sorry for you, and men understand that. I think at large, men get it, and then men who sit on the couch and complain, guess what they call? Losers. Not on this couch though. Winners on this couch.
That's right.
But you get the idea. It's like, it's the constant improvement process. That's what it seems like to me, at this point in my life, because especially here in the States, especially in an open society in the West, where nobody is holding you down to do nothing. You have all the resources in the world in terms of your internet, in terms of the books, the resources, like the videos, it's like endless list of things that you can do to make yourself better in many different ways. And I just think I just find it weird. Like, I think there are exceptions where man could be, having legitimate health issues, right? I can see that. But I think a lot of like excuses that people will give you, it's easier to give an excuse than to do work at the end of the day, So I can create a great excuse. I can say, I didn't do this because of 5 different things. I had a flat tire. I had to call to my mom. I had to take Andre to ice cream shop. Like, I just couldn't do those things. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, like if you face yourself as a man, that you could have done those things. And I partially think that it's like why some men have regrets towards like the end of life. It's like thinking back to some of the things that they could have done. You have anything on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think with this, like the definition of a mediocre life is not fulfilling your dreams, right? And I think that we all have certain dreams when we're growing up, dreams of, I don't know, becoming, a brain surgeon, or becoming this or becoming that. And those dreams obviously change throughout time. So I think it's sometimes it's dangerous to try to attach your happiness and your definition of success with these dreams, right? I think more important than anything is, are you continually trying to improve, right? That has to be your common denominator, because your dreams can change, right? Dreams can change, but that principle of kaizen, which is like, continuous improvement, that could always be a common denominator regardless of what your dreams are. So I could definitely, I definitely think we all get comfortable to a certain degree, and if we all kind of get kind of stuck in the swing of things and stay comfortable, and we do that for long enough, sometimes I think we get to the point where it's too late to chase our dreams. Maybe we're not as young as we used to be, and it's a little bit riskier now in our opinions, and it entails more fear because we have more to lose. So I think there's a lot of things that go with it, but I think that if you have a common denominator of, like we said, continuous improvement, right? If you're not growing, you're dying, right? Life is one long process of continually like improving yourself, and then adapting that to maybe your dreams. Obviously we all have certain goals in our life that we want to achieve, but I think with that common denominator, regardless of whether your dreams change, and whether you fully fulfill them, you'll never feel mediocre.
Question for both of you. I'm curious to know how you guys know, or do you know when you get complacent?
I mean, I think that's a conversation that everybody has with themselves on a daily basis, whether we like it or not. And I think that if we're all honest enough with ourselves, we have the answer. Like we know whether we could be doing more. We know, kind of like going back to what Mike said, out of the 24 hours in the day, we could objectively look at the 24 and see exactly what we're spending each one of those hours, minutes, seconds doing. Right. And then we could go back to that and say, if I want to achieve these goals, how can I make better use of my time to achieve those goals with what I'm doing? We could objectively do those things for sure, but obviously it comes down to doing that on a daily basis, really being honest with ourselves, and then putting that honesty and that reflection into action, right? Because all these thoughts, dreams, this, that, as we can see, without action, they never come to life.
Why are you, why are you looking at me?
I just didn't know if you had anything. A man that is capable to support a whole family without help is the man. This is a good enough man. Everything else is mediocre. I wish everybody thought that way. Because right now, let's be honest, there's like a lot of chatter, at least on YouTube, where like women want more. You can tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me in the comments if I'm wrong. But it seems that like a lot of uh, women, let's call it as is, it's no longer enough to just man who can support the family. Like he should be able to provide a certain lifestyle, certain vacations, certain restaurants, um, going to places, doing things, right? And that's what I'm experiencing, at least like on the internet, not in my personal life, but definitely out there in the world of social media and in general, it seems to be desire of a lot of women nowadays. Um, so hopefully, I can one day find a woman who can just who can just appreciate a man who can support a family.
She's looking for you.
I think her name is Mama Bulgaria.
Ooh.
Her.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Mama Bulgaria. Are you in Bulgaria?
Yeah.
Any closing thoughts, my friends? I think we went for almost hour and a half. I think this is a good place. We share a lot of information. So any closing thoughts on anything that like caught your attention, anything that you left unsaid that needs to be shared with this wonderful community and with the world at large?
Yes. I love you guys, and I'm glad to be doing this with you and to be here celebrating with you guys and spending time with each other.
Likewise, man.
For sure.
Likewise.
The feeling is mutual.
Very much so. Very much so. This is a beautiful thing when grown men can get together, enjoy each other's company, having these mature conversations, honest conversations, and acknowledge, love for one another. And that's what's happening here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the closing thought that I had, it kind of reminds me of something one of our U.S. presidents once said, and I'll modify it a little bit. Ask not what others can do for you. Ask not what a woman can do for you. Ask not what a family member can do for you. Ask not what an employer can do for you. Ask not what an YouTube audience member can do for you. Ask yourself, what can you do for yourself? What can you do for the audience member? What can you do for your family? What can you do to make other people shine and become a better version of themselves? That is the most important question. Whenever we ask, oh, why is this person doing that? Why? There's many reasons why people do what they do, but you'll never really know the full answer. You sometimes might even be partially blind to yourself. We all have blind spots, right? Mm-hmm. But you know yourself to a good enough degree to be able to make yourself better, make yourself more powerful, more loving, more caring, more responsible, more energetic, more youthful, etc. You have everything that is required to take the very next step in the direction that you want to go. So ask yourself, You know, whenever you find yourself worrying too much about other people or what's going on in the outside world, don't spend too much time there. Bring it back here. This is where you have all your power. You have all the power you need with you, whoever you are. So
This is a powerful thought to close this podcast. This was a blast. Thank you, everyone who joined us live. Thank you to Michael and Andre for being here with me and sharing their wisdom and knowledge. We'll see you next time. We might not be together next time, but you can always watch this video and recording. And hopefully, we will have this chance to do this again. Sometimes not, not in too distant of a future. So thank you all very, very much. Have a wonderful weekend, and be good to yourself and others. Take care, guys.
Thank you, guys. Peace.